Let's take a look at an artist who had an amazing 50-year career where he was just continually reinventing himself all the time. He's known as the chameleon of rock. He sold over 100 million albums, making him one of the best-selling artists of all time. In addition to a music career, he appeared in a number of films. Now, he's gone by a number of names. He's known as Starman, Ziggy Stardust, the Thin White Duke. But he was born with a much more common name, Robert David Jones. Yep, we're going to take a look at David Bowie and his music through the years. Can you hear me, Major Tom? All right then, let's drop the needle. From all accounts, the young David Robert Jones was a precocious kid. He sang in the church choir, and at age 9, he joined a dance troupe where the teacher said his moves were wildly artistic. But he has said that when his father brought home a bunch of American 45 singles, and he first heard Little Richard singing Tutti Frutti, he said that he had heard God. In 1957, the skiffle craze was quite big in England. So he picked up a tea chest and taught himself to play that, and he played with a few groups, and then he taught himself to play piano. Then in 1962, he and a friend were goofing around and then got into an argument, and the friend punched him in the face, causing serious eye damage to one of his pupils, which made it look like it was always dilated and gave the impression that one eye was a different color from the other. In 1962, when David was 15, he joined a group called the Conrads and then switched over to the King Bees, where he got a manager. He releases his first single called Liza Jane, and it's credited to Davy Jones and the King Bees. The single was not successful, so he quits the King Bees and then joins another group called the Manish Boys. Now, David has said that at that time he envisioned himself being the next Mick Jagger. But he had no success with the Manish Boys, so he left them and joined another group called the Lower Third, which meant that he had to get a new manager. He did, and the new manager got him a recording contract with Pi Records on the condition that David Jones would write the songs that they were going to record. But he had a problem because there was another English actor who also was a musician, and he was on a very popular American TV show, and that was Davy Jones of the Monkees. So back in England, Davy Jones decides he needs to change his name. So he decides to call himself David Bowie, after James Bowie, the American pioneer, and his famous hunting knife. In 1966, he releases a single, Can't Help Thinking About Me, which was recorded with the Lower Third, but it was a flop. He continued to move between bands, and he continued to record. In 1967, he releases another single, which is a solo single called The Laughing Gnome, but it also failed to chart. But it did lead to him making his first album, which he titles David Bowie. He wrote all the songs on the album, and the album has two singles, Rubber Band and Please Mr. Gravedigger, but neither one of them really caught on. As a result, David Bowie did not release any new music for at least 2 years. During that time, he immersed himself in studying mime and theater, and he and his friend formed a group called Feathers. They would do concerts where they would do poetry, a little bit of theatrical stuff, and David would do mime. At that time, Mark Bolan's Tyrannosaurus Rex was a duo, and they were going on tour, and so David Bowie took third billing to be on the tour with Mark. And during his tour with Tyrannosaurus Rex, Bowie just did mime. But David was getting disillusioned with the fact that his music career wasn't really going anywhere. So he sat down and he wrote a song about a fictional astronaut, Major Tom, and the song, of course, was Space Oddity. And it was released just 5 days before the launch of Apollo 11. And there was very much interest in what was going on with astronauts in space, and as a result, Space Oddity became a big hit, which led to him releasing his second album, which, confusingly, he once again calls David Bowie, which of course was the name of his first album. But unlike his first album, which was really kind of like music hall stylings, now he's embracing folk and psychedelic music. But even with the hit Space Oddity, this album flops. When it's released in the US, it's retitled Man of Words, Man of Music. Besides Space Oddity, I like Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed, and Memory of a Free Festival. In 1970, David met and married Angela Barnett, and she was greatly influential in his development as an artist. David wanted a band, so he formed one and called it Hype, but they weren't really going anywhere, so he decides he's going to rebrand them as his backup band. And then he releases an album which is called The Man Who Sold the World. The sound is more hard rock. There are no singles, but I like All the Madmen, the title track, and The Supermen. The album hit 24 in the UK, but it could only reach 105 in the US. The album features Mick Ronson on guitar and Mick Woodmansey on drums, who would both later be in a band that you've probably heard of called Spiders from Mars. For this album, there were different covers for the UK and the US. The US shows a cartoon of a man in front of a building, and the UK cover shows Bowie wearing a dress. The record company decided to have Bowie promote the album, and they sent him out to do interviews, and he showed up for the interviews wearing a dress. Now, this caused a lot of publicity because men did not wear dresses, but Bowie sure got a lot of attention because that's what he did. During this time, Bowie meets and befriends Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, and he decides that he wants to become the ultimate pop star. So he starts writing this fictional story about a pop star, and he calls him Iggy. He's got great plans for Iggy, but that's going to have to wait a bit, because first he releases an album called Hunky Dory. He changes style again and focuses more on piano-based pop songs. On the cover, David impersonates the look of Greta Garbo, again pushing his sexual boundaries, but it wouldn't be the last time. I quite like this album, and I played it a lot. There's the great opener, Changes, which pretty much sums up everything Bowie is doing. Oh You Pretty Things, Life on Mars, Andy Warhol, Song for Bob Dylan, and Queen Bitch. The album did pretty well in the UK, but it did not chart in the US. But after Hunky Dory, David decides he's going to revisit that fictional pop star that he's created, but in this case, instead of being Iggy, he changes his name to Ziggy, and he brands the backup band the Spiders from Mars. And they go on a UK tour, and he dyes his hair red and wears a lot of fancy costumes on stage. And this was during the glam period in the UK. To say he's a sensation is putting it mildly. All of a sudden, David Bowie, in the persona of Ziggy Stardust, becomes a huge star. And of course, this culminates in the release of the album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. It's a rock opera that focuses on Ziggy Stardust as a bisexual star who's sent to Earth. The album tells of how Ziggy rises to fame only to fall from the excess of his own ego. They're all great songs, but if I had to single some out, there'd be Moon Age Daydream, Starman, Hang On to Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, the great Suffragette City, and the closer, Rock and Roll Suicide. It hits number 5 in the UK and 75 in the US. David comes and tours the US with the Spiders from Mars, and I saw him at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium there just in LA, and the show was amazing and weird. That concert was broadcast on radio, bootlegged, then finally released in 2008. The tour then traveled through Europe. They went to Japan, and then they came back to the UK. And they were doing a show on July 3rd, where David, on stage as Ziggy, stuns the audience and the members of the Spiders from Mars by announcing that not only is this the last show of the tour, but it is the last show that they will ever perform. Now, as usual, I've created a Spotify playlist where you can listen to some of the songs that I've talked about in this episode. And here's the link, and I'll also put it in the comments below. In the first 5 years of his career, David Bowie went from a music hall singer to a Greta Garbo lookalike, to the man who sold the world, to Major Tom, and finally to Ziggy Stardust. What a ride! And David Bowie is just getting started. In the next episode, we'll take a look at how Ziggy Stardust morphs into Aladdin's scene. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep a rockin'. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.